do genetic engineering, do experimentation. Humanity, if you look at us, we are a very perfected form. And I've heard this over and over again. I mean, we've got these opposable thumbs. We have this beautiful framework for doing exactly what it is we do. And the fact that we evolved this way, sometimes at accelerated pace, it definitely brings up a lot of questions. I definitely personally believe that there is genetic manipulation on the part of non-human intelligence going all the way back to when we came out of caves.
Just a quick break from the program. I need to share with you in urgent manner about scam gold IRAs and the important need to make sure that you're working with a trusted company in the precious metal space. I have had hundreds of people come to me now where they have lost 50, 60, 70% of their life savings in these scam gold IRAs. We are having nearly 100% success rate getting their money back. If you have put your life savings into a gold IRA, I implore you to look and see if you have been scammed. Don't trust the company that sold it to you. Make sure you understand what you can get as a buyback value for the gold or silver that you have in your IRA. If you have noticed a significant drop in what you invested, you have more than likely been scammed. We can help you, and there's no shame. Go to sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin, fill out that form, and we will help you get your life savings back. Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. I have a fun interview to do with Ron James. He's the Media Relations Director for MUFON, and I'm going to read part of his bio here. He's also the Media Director for Mutual UFO Network. He serves on the board of directors for the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. His most recent documentary, Accidental Truth UFO Revelations, was narrated by Matthew Modine and has won 28 Film Festival Awards and was cited by name during a UAP congressional hearing by Representative Tim Burchett as one of the most important UFO documentary films of all times. He has another film coming out in February called The Unexplained, The Proof is Out There, and The Secret Skin Walker Ranch. And this one is also going to be narrated by Matthew Modine, but we talk about it a little bit in the show. It has senators in it. It has behind the scenes disclosure information, kind of jaw dropping, he says, is going to be coming out. And I'm excited to see it. I love hearing about interesting things like this. I had Paul Hellyer on, who is the highest ranking. He's the former defense minister for Canada. And he came out and he was talking about there being an alien alliance out there. I asked him, is there really an alien alliance out there? And he talks about his opinion during this interview, what his opinion is on whether there actually is an alien alliance. I'm like, okay, this is incredible. These are the kinds of things that people are talking about. I also asked him about AI Atlas. He knows the Harvard scientist Loeb that talked about that, and he gives inside information on that. So this is a really fun interview for me, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I want to remind you that I have the Replay Peptide webinar. It is doing really well. People are very interested in the peptides. I got to tell you, I get these like plasma pen stuff here and there when I get a facial once a month. Okay, here I am. I get a facial once a month, and I do this plasma pen, and it creates a little bit it's a way to generate collagen in your face. And it creates these little scabs that last, not you're supposed to last, up to 5 days. I've been taking BPC 157 and the GHQ-CU copper peptide, and the healing time for these little scabs that are created has been dropped in half. It's incredible how much quicker you heal and your body regenerates on these things. And people are swearing about it for pain relief, it's supposed to help with skin and build your collagen and so many anti-aging. And really, it's not just anti-aging. It's one thing. It's really about feeling better. I mean, how many of us are in our, getting up there and you feel things more. You don't heal as quickly. You can't see as well. I mean, I got these freaking glasses, and it helps to just feel like you did when you're younger. I have more energy. I've lost weight. I feel so much better. I started this almost a year ago, and it is incredible how much I look better, I feel better. It's incredible. If you are interested, I'll have the link below to the webinar I did with Dr. Diane Kaiser. If you are interested in getting these peptides, New Year resolution, get going on being healthy, make sure you save 15% by using the code Sarah. And if you pay through your bank account, you save an extra 5%. I always do that because you save 20% overall. And the prices are freaking great compared to getting it directly from, if you even can get it, if you can get it from a doctor, it's really hard. Like the GLP-1s are very expensive. This is less expensive, but the lab might be more expensive than some of the other peptide companies because it's made in the United States and they go through very rigorous testing protocols through independent analysis to just show you just the peptides in it, no extra junk, nothing else. I'm willing to pay an extra $10 for a product to make sure there's nothing else in it. It's really important. They have higher standards than Big Pharma does. So with that being said, let's get into this phenomenal discussion I have with Ron James. Hi, Ron. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You have a really interesting background covering and talking about aliens for years. Tell the audience what you've been working on and what you've done.
Well, ever since I was a kid, I
know it can go, hold on. I know it can go hours. So briefly, go ahead.
Yeah, I won't do that. So, ever since I was young, I was interested in topics such as the paranormal. And as I got into adult life, I started finding out how real and valid some of these theories are. And so I ended up recording some UFO conferences, and I got to meet all the people I'd seen on TV. And I've kind of been immersed in it ever since as an investigator and as a filmmaker and as a director of media relations for the Mutual UFO Network.
Yeah, and the MUFON, which is the...
Yes, that's MUFON.
Is kind of the leading organization in this area, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, MUFON has been around since the 1950s. They were kind of a civilian extension of Project Blue Book. And currently we're the only civilian organization that actually investigates UFO sightings all over the world. We've got thousands of active members, and our database contains well over 150,000 documented sighting incidents.
Wow. And over the years, you've had really prestigious people involved in the UFO community.
Well, there really is. And, we've lost a lot of them, and we're finally getting to this point in time where we may be getting some vindication and we may be getting some official acknowledgement. And for the people that have dedicated their lives that are not with us anymore, and the people that are still doing it quietly, boots on the ground, they really deserve some kudos.
Yeah, because it hasn't been an easy process, has it? It's been pretty abusive behind the scenes.
It really has. I mean, one of the things that was put in place way back when they decided to cover this stuff up from a modern official level, which was back in the late 30s, ridicule has been a big factor in this. So make fun of the people, put them in tinfoil hats, tell them they're chasing little green men, make them stupid, make pilots afraid to report things because of what it could do to their careers. And so there's been a certain amount of ridicule that's come with this topic forever, and it's still there to some extent, but much, much less today.
And it's turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry, hasn't it? I mean, people are really interested. It's always been a big industry, but it's really grown.
Yeah, it's a shame to see that actually, because there's money in UFOs now. It's mainstream. It's Steven Spielberg. It's Hollywood coming out with new documentaries, and so yes, there's been a benefit to that because it's gotten a lot more exposure for the field. But there's also a lot of people that have stepped in just for those reasons that are clouding the water, and so it's a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword because I know a lot of people in the industry, I've been doing this for over 10 years now. So you get to know people, right? And
Sure.
some of the people behind the scenes are saying, it's not, some of the most respected people are not being paid attention to where some of these celebrities are. And it's, like you said, it's muddying the waters and making it not as scientific and believable as it was.
Well, Sarah, there's something that's going on that's been happening since 2017 with, this new determination of disclosure. And that is that through the official government channels, the people like Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon and all of these guys that are in Washington, D.C., and the people that are in this new movie, Age of Disclosure, these are guys that are telling a preset narrative at the behest of the people that have been in control of this information for a long time. And so the story that they're able to tell is the story these people want us to hear, but it's not the whole story.
It's a part of the story, isn't it? Okay, so let's dive into that. What is the story? What is the part that's able to be told? And then let's get past that into what's really going on.
Well, the part that the so-called government is willing to tell us, and they've been leaking this out for quite some time, is yeah, there's non-human intelligence engaging us, but we don't know what they are. We don't know where they came from. So they're willing to go that far. But what they're not willing to do is acknowledge that this has been going on since the beginning of recorded history. Human interaction with non-human intelligence is nothing new. It's been a part of our culture and our religions and our teachings and our experience since we've been on the planet. And the deeper meaning of all of this has to do more with the very nature of our reality than it does rather they're from Mars or the Pleiades or other planets, or rather they're here, and that there is a lot of different types of non-human intelligence that are interacting with us, that it's going to be really hard for people to wrap their head around the variety that we're dealing with. It's like all of the above. Are they from another planet? Have they been here all along? Are they an advanced species that lives inside the earth and under the ocean? Are they time travelers? Are they interdimensional beings? Are they what we would call angels, demons, disembodied specters that can appear? We're kind of coming to the conclusion and the understanding that all of these things are true in some way.
Well, and do you think that religions have evolved to make sense of some of this?
Yeah, actually, I think the religions were making sense of it a long time ago, and that because of the way religion was shaped to create societal controls, these narratives were adapted to fit, the motivations of the people that were spitting it out. But non-human intelligence interacting with people, Ezekiel being ordered to build the wheel, which is by any standard definition a spaceship. There's story. If you replace angels with aliens in the Bible, the story actually begins to make a lot more sense. And I would never want to disparage traditional religion. And I think that it's not that they're wrong, it's that they're actually right, but we're not interpreting it in the way that really fits the facts.
And it's
in
the
some
language.
cases.
It's the language that's used. Mauro Biglino has been on my show many times. He's the Vatican translator that, he's done 17, 19 books for the Vatican, and he translated the Old Testament. He says that the Old Testament really is a story about alien beings and how they interacted with humans.
Yeah, the footprint or the fingerprints of non-human intelligence are all over our history. And it's almost to this point kind of ignorant to not be willing to acknowledge that. Now, this could be any kind of beings. We have stories about angelic appearances. We have stories of demonic beings. We have stories of actual physical non-human races that were here on the planet, like giants, the Anunnaki. When people formed the ability to write down things, it makes no sense that they would create works of fiction to put on the tablets and the walls. They were documenting their history and their truth. And it's been very hard for mainstream science and archaeology today to just understand that and acknowledge it.
Well, what is the deal with 3A Atlas? What is all the, a lot of people believe, okay, a lot of people believe that there is an upcoming psyop to bring in the alien deal as another control mechanism. And that has been floating around for a long time, right? I mean, at least since I started in this industry. And now people are saying 3A Atlas is real, and other people are saying, no, it's the beginning of this psyop. What is your beliefs on that?
It's interesting, and we'll have to see how the story unfolds. But This idea of excuse me, something called Project Bluebeam, which is what it was named as a false flag operation, that we're going to have aliens appearing and it's all going to be a fake thing and it's going to be used to usher in one world government and manipulate humanity as a whole to a final direction. That idea has been floated for a long time, and it actually has some basis in fact. But the practicality of doing that, and Richard Dolan is a good friend of mine. He's a very famous historian here in this field. And he has a book that he didn't release about false flags. And one of the things that we covered was this whole Project Bluebeam idea. In this day and age, it might not be super practical to pull that off, but there's still people out there in conspiracy land that want to cling to it. And there's people that, like filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, who's a friend of mine, he has floated that that is something that they're going to do. They're going to have a fake alien invasion. 3AI Atlas came into the scene at a very interesting time. Avi Loeb was able to identify some things about it that were definitely anomalous. But at the end of the day, this thing just flew through the solar system and going on its way. It is strange. It doesn't fit the parameters of a normal comet, but there's nothing conclusive that says that it's some kind of artificially created craft. So the idea that the government or some bodies are going to latch on to 3AI Atlas and use it to be a precursor to this story about alien invasions, my personal opinion, and I think a lot of people in MUFON would agree, if the aliens are going to come, they're going to come. Nobody's going to fake us out and say, "Oh, the aliens are here," but they're really not. So it's either or. I'm not a supporter of the fake alien invasion.
You think it's if they're going to come forward, it's going to be a real deal.
If they decide that they're going to make themselves known, and at the end of the day, I think that these other species are the ones that are in control. It's not up to the president. It's not up to the military. It's not up to all the people that are keeping this a secret. If these beings, if most of them highly advanced, decide that it's time to, make their presence known to humanity, they will do it.
How
But
much
right
more
now, I'm just not sure we're qualified.
how much more advanced are they than us? I mean, are we like in Star Trek where we're the primitive tribes that they come and visit in comparison?
Well, if you look at the history of the universe and how long it's been around, and the highly likely odds that there's multiple advanced life elsewhere, they've had a heck of a head start. We're just a blink in the eye of galactic evolution.
Yeah, there's some scary things that some people on our planet are seeming like they're implementing. Do you believe and have any idea that they are maybe protecting us? So there's evidence of our nuclear, bombs that were going to go off that was shut down, or there's advanced tech that they actually intervene and help make sure it's not going in a bad direction. And then other people think that they're actually behind all this stuff. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a little bit of as above, so below. And although I can't say that this is MUFON's official position, I believe that there's probably a number of spacefaring civilizations that are aware of us. And if you have that many spacefaring civilizations, they've got to know about each other. And it would only stand to reason as you continue the thought experiment that if they have super advanced technology, they also have the ability to destroy each other pretty easily. So there must be some sort of an alliance and an understanding that enables them to coexist. And so when you enter planet Earth and us silly humans playing with matches, there's probably some management in place and there's probably some different agendas for the outcome of how things are going to turn out for this planet and for us and for our future. And so we're seeing this play out. The aliens and different spacefaring species may not all be the same, and they may not be as enlightened as we'd like to think they are. And let's face it, Earth's a valuable piece of real estate. And so it's if you're if you're out there in the universe and you're looking at this incredibly diverse, DNA rich, resource rich, magical planet, it stands to reason that it's going to draw some interest.
And it could draw interest from good ones and bad ones, right?
Absolutely. And it's there's people that say that that's exactly true, that there's good aliens and bad aliens, for lack of a better phrase. Some of them would like to see us evolve and grow into the position where we could be welcomed into this galactic federation and have a future in the stars, like right out of Star Trek. And then there's others that just don't see us as really being anything but self-destructive and maniacal, and that we don't deserve to get there, and they'll find other things for us to do. So we're at a point right now where we're truly self-determining. And I think that we're at the end game. We have all the tools in our hands to evolve a peaceful, loving species and overcome our self-destructive tendencies, or we can just blow ourselves up. And I think that the reason that they might have interfered with our nuclear capabilities isn't so much because they're trying to protect us. I think they're trying to protect themselves. If there's species that have bases on the planet, if they're under the water, they don't want us blowing that stuff up because we're going to mess up their world. And if there's also talk of there being interdimensional possibilities from the explosion of these weapons. So I don't think that their interference and their keeping us from completely burning it all down is so much because they want to help us. I think it's because they need to keep us from doing something that could be catastrophic for them.
Some people believe that we are actually a creation of one of those species and that they're evolving us. They're manipulating us and evolving us. Is there evidence to that?
There seems to be some holes in the genetic evolution of humanity. In other words, we got very far very fast. And there's stories that go back to the beginning of our recorded history of extraterrestrial non-human races that came down and manipulated our DNA. Obviously, there's no proof for any of that, but people that believe that can make a strong case. And if planets like this are like gardens for extraterrestrial species to come in and basically do genetic engineering, do experimentation. Humanity, if you look at us, we are a very perfected form. And I've heard this over and over again. I mean, we've got these opposable thumbs. We have this beautiful framework for doing exactly what it is we do. And the fact that we evolved this way, sometimes at accelerated pace, it definitely brings up a lot of questions. I definitely personally believe that there is genetic manipulation on the part of non-human intelligence going all the way back to when we came out of caves.
Well, and you think about what Mauro Biglino, how he interpreted that's maybe one little evidence piece, but it's not enough evidence. But if you look at our chromosome, the animals that all have 48 chromosomes and we have 46, why are we different from the rest of the animals? And it's the first two that look like they were fused. It wasn't like they went and fused, they just like fused the first two.
Yeah, there's legends of races that are master geneticists, and it all goes into the UFO lore that we can't really prove. So we try to stay away from it as far as having official positions. But I personally think that there's definitely enough evidence that we have been helped along. Let's just say that. And what's interesting is I think that's still happening. There's stories right now about hybrids. These children that we're having are having these increased psychic abilities that are just off the charts. So the human race is evolving even now, and it's happening at an accelerated pace because it's intergenerational. We're seeing increased abilities in telepathy, all of these psi abilities, telepathy, telekinesis, the ability to go out of the body. Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell with the telepathy tapes is really rocking the world with some of her discoveries and theories.
And what are some of those? That's like the kids with autism and that where they're just
Yeah, she's in my
incredible.
my upcoming film, and what we're finding out is that these autistic children are gifted in other ways. And one of the things that they're really able to do is they can communicate through telepathy. There's actually a place called the Hill. Have you heard about this?
Mm-mm. No.
Autistic children all over the world have described a place that they go that is out of their body, that they gather and they call it the Hill, and it's a non-physical place, but people from all over the world gather there and interact in non-physical form. And this story is being told repeatedly by kids that have no way of knowing each other. They
Wow.
meet and convene at the Hill. And some of these autistic kids that are part of her telepathy tapes experiments and others are actually saying that, yes, I mean, I'm out of my body as much as I'm in it. This is, I do not consider my flesh and blood to be the essence of who I am. And so humanity, through numerous different ways, is starting to scientifically validate the idea that we're, spiritual creatures having a human experience inside some sort of a simulation.
I need to get her on the show. I heard part of her, now that you say that, I heard her speak on a radio show, and she talked about how she was initially confronted by having one of these children and then dove into it. And she was persecuted quite a bit because it wasn't in her lane, right? I mean, you can't
Right.
go there. And then now she's being redeemed a bit, which is nice to see, right? After being persecuted for so long. But so she's starting to get noticed, which I think is incredible.
Well, this is the story of how science advances. First, it starts off with a radical idea, and you're persecuted and you're mocked by your peers, and then the idea gains a little bit of traction, and then, often too late. I mean, it was too late for Galileo.
I know,
We
I
have a
know.
history of scientific visionaries that were persecuted and in ancient history even imprisoned or killed as heretics, but who turned out to be right. And we're still experiencing that right now. And
That's
some
right.
of the newest things that are coming up is, the mechanism in which physical reality even works. And the idea that, yes, we're in some kind of a simulation and that consciousness is fundamental and everything else springs forth from that. These are radical ideas that people have been degraded for years and years and years, but now it's starting to look like they might be right.
We're some kind of avatar, right? I mean, that has an experience, and then maybe the autistic kids, they can't, their avatar is not performing like ours are, or,
They're
you know,
bridging the gap, the barrier between the physical world simulation, if you want to call it that, and the spiritual existence which springs from consciousness. Is that line is blurred with some of these children, and that seems to be what we're encountering.
wow, that's incredible. So what can you confidently say is true and that, you've documented so much that you just without a doubt, it's true?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Sarah, because there's so much hyperbole and there's so many things that we want to believe that there's a decent amount of evidence for that could be true. But I'm asked this question a lot, and the fact of the matter is that it's distilled down to just a few very basic facts. And fact number one is that there's hardly a scientist today that would not agree that the universe is probably teeming with life. Now, whether or not they're coming here and all this other stuff, that's still up for debate. But that core fact that there is life elsewhere in the universe is not really something that can be mathematically debated anymore. So we are not alone. We might not know exactly the details of that, but it's pretty scientifically sound that we're not alone in the universe. The second is that there seems to be a historical fingerprint of non-human intelligence engaging us in many, many ways as far back as we have the ability to record what's happening. So that's point two. And point three is there are people on the planet, be it people that are deep within religion, such as who's hiding in the Vatican archives and what's down there, to people that are deep, deep, deep in government and private industry that know about this and are actively exploiting it and keeping it for humanity. They might not know the whole picture, but they know a lot more than they're willing to tell us. So those three key facts, I would say, are pretty much very, very hard to dispute.
A quick break to share with you this wonderful product called MasterPeace. It is proven to taking out graphene oxide, aluminums, heavy metals, microplastics. They also are looking at these MAC addresses, and there's more and more research and there's studies coming out. There's 4 documentaries that are being made on their studies of how they're able to disable MAC addresses that are somehow put into people. This is amazing stuff. I highly recommend. I buy a whole box of it and I make sure my whole family has it. If you are interested in trying this and really cleaning up your body from microplastics, graphene oxide, you can also test yourself. You can get your hair tested, see what you are before and what you are after you use this for a few months. They stand behind what they're doing with tests, studies, and real results. And look for the link below where you can buy MasterPeace yourself. It'll provide you a discount, or you can go to sarahwestall.com under shop. Now, do you think that the military learns from you as well? Or do you really, you just said they know more, but do they really know more? Or are they're as in the dark as us? I mean, are they really working with them, like as some people suggest? Do you know?
Here's the thing. The way the military and the way these intelligence operations work, everything is, and I know people have heard this before, everything is compartmentalized and stovepiped. You might be in one room looking, trying to figure out how a certain alloy is made, but you have no idea that that alloy was recovered in a crash from of a non-human craft. You just know that you're studying this metal, and that's how they keep it apart. Very, very few people, even through history, have had the bird's eye view of everything that's going on. And one of the sad things is that a lot of those people might be gone. And
Mm.
so this is kind of what happened. Back in the 30s is when we had the modern era of the UFO cover up. Before then it was the churches and the religions that were managing this information. But when technology began to arise and we began to recover craft, which arguably happened back in the late 30s in Italy, was one of the very first ones. It was decided that humanity could not be made aware of this, that it would be too much of a change in society, and that it just wasn't, it didn't fit the status quo of the people that are running the planet for a variety of reasons. Humanity couldn't be made aware. Certain groups were created that were accountable to practically no one to manage this information and discredit anything that went into the public. And this has been the status quo for all these years. Very, very few people in very, very dark, deep places. You will never know their names. They're not in documentaries. They're not on TV. They're not giving interviews. You'll never know who they are. They have been managing this information. And how much they know versus how much people at the higher levels know, we can't really say. But the front-facing military, the people at the Pentagon, even presidents, Congress people, and politicians, they're not only are they not being read in, they don't even know who to talk to. So this stuff bubbles up a little here, a story here, David Grush saying we're reverse engineering craft. But the people that are actually running this thing they're never going to come forward and say, oh yes, it's us. We've been lying to humanity this whole time. Look, here's a flying saucer. We're never going to see that.
Well, I know some scientists that actually worked on reverse engineering some of this craft stuff, and they say the same thing that you're saying is they were working on it, but it is really compartmentalized. But somebody is running the overall project. It's kind of like the X-Files where they have the smoking man, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Well, there's
that
a smoking
concept.
man, and I'm sure that they're working at the behest of one or more extraterrestrial species that are guiding this, because we're not in charge. If there truly is non-human craft and they truly are extraterrestrial, they're the ones calling the shots. And so, there's been these stories about, hey, maybe we're working with the tall whites in the desert, and why are these landing pads out in the middle of nowhere? There's all kinds of tales of different supposed uh, alien species that are interacting with us on some way. And some of them get pretty fringy. But at the end of the day, it's like the way reality works, we don't know what to believe anymore. And
That's
a lot of
right.
things can be true. So I
Well,
used to be very judgmental. It's like, oh, this person that says he did this and saw this, that's crazy. That couldn't have happened. But now I'm like, well, maybe we need to understand that reality is subjective, We need to understand that it's very flexible and very strange. And we need to start paying attention to some of these stories that we're being told because they contain possibly nuggets of truth.
Do you think something's going to be coming out soon
I think
in
it's
a
been
bigger
coming.
way?
Yeah, I think it's been coming out. Anybody that really wants to do their research, that I think that we definitely, I've said before that the acknowledgement of finding some sort of life on Mars was going to be one of the first things they did. And they did that. And the whole world just kind of yawned and said, yeah, what's for dinner? But NASA finally admitted it. They've known that there was, that there
But
were
what did
living
they
things on
admit?
Mars.
Did they admit bacteria or did they admit more than that?
No, they've just admitted that they found some bacteria on rocks, but anybody that really explores the history of life on Mars and the research goes all the way back to the Viking craft, one of the first ones to land, when they designed several experiments to detect life. And the experiments actually detected life. So then they changed the parameters of the experiment so they could still say it was inconclusive. NASA's been covering stuff up for a very long time, and they're pretty good at it. But yeah, so we've gotten this acknowledgement that yeah, there's something alive or evidence of life on Mars. That's step one. Um, you know, Admitting that there's extraterrestrials or that there's non-human intelligence
It was a big
is
deal.
not something that should be classified. It's not something that should be held away from humanity. It's all the things that surround it that make it very difficult for these guys to come out with the whole truth.
And what is all the things that surround it that makes it so difficult for them to come out?
Well, Sarah, let's think about the power structure on the planet just to start, okay? The entire planet is run by very, very rich people, largely using energy to control the population. In other words, it's the power structures that have all of these things in place that basically make social slaves out of all of us. Now, if all of a sudden there was a free energy, there was a box that you could put in your garage that it was derived from reverse engineering a power system on some of these craft, you put this box in your garage and never pay for power again. Never pay for fuel, never pay for electricity, never pay for any of that. What does that do to the elite, rich, oligarchic power structure that rules us all? It sets us all free. And then we enter into a time of abundance where we can't be controlled. And so let's face it, humanity is a for-profit venture. And there's a lot of people that are profiting. And they wouldn't be profiting if a lot of this technology was openly available.
Are there
And then
species?
we can look at advances in healthcare, but
That's right.
there's nobody that has a stake in a cure for cancer. The stake in cancer is treatment and basically draining your wallet until you're dead.
And create
So
more cancer
who'd want to mess
cases.
that up?
Yeah, and let's make sure there's a hell of a lot more cancer cases because this is one big lucrative deal.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, I mean, it boils down to there's some not so great people running things on planet Earth, and in my new film we talk about this. I have actor Thomas Jane, and we're talking about the kind of people that ascend to the top of the hierarchy and power structures, and they're generally, they're not the nice people are just minding their own business, doing their stuff. The ruthless people that don't care are the ones that are attaining power and have for a very long time. It's the whole history of people that ascend to high levels of power are all psychologically the same type of people. And so we're dealing with not so great people running the planet, have a lot to lose. And then when we get into the nuances of all this, it's a crime against humanity to have withheld all of this. Everybody that's involved. There's so many legal issues that prevent anybody who really knows what's going on from saying, "Oh yeah, hey, at Lockheed Martin, we've had these samples for ages. We derived stealth craft coatings and all kinds of technology from this stuff, and yeah, we did that, and we patented it all." And there's just so much wrongdoing that would bubble up with the truth that there's just no way they're going to do it. I mean, maybe after everybody that is involved is dead, but they're not doing it now.
Well, the 3A Atlas, do you think it's just a money-making grab, or do you think there's something real there?
It's certainly an anomalous object doing strange things. But one thing I noticed with Atlas is that, I watch YouTube a lot because it's part of my research.
Hmm.
And one thing I noticed is that an entire manifestation of the direction of AI arose out of 3AI Atlas. There were videos that were being made that were fake AI of people like Avi Loeb saying things that weren't true. Um, all basically fiction created around this thing and then put out there as fact. And it points to something I think we need to be very concerned about, which is this evolution of the false narrative being propelled by technology that makes it easy to fake anything. And
That's
so
right.
what I noticed about 3i Atlas is that there was no place to get a straight answer. You could get some kind of a straight answer from NASA. And Avi Loeb was, he was pushing a lot of stuff, but at least he was saying, look, this is just a theory. And he was on top of it. I know Avi, I've got nothing against him. I think that the attention he brought to it was fine. But at the end of the day, we've got nothing conclusive that says it was anything more than a passing object.
Oh, that's too bad. And so it's another thing that I get back to the billion-dollar industry, right? I mean, people make money getting clicks, and so that's why they're doing that. And there's a lot of money to be made in the social media markets right now. So aliens are getting a ton of attention, right? There are big people saying that disclosure is coming, and the government wants to do disclosure.
I think they have to. At some point, you can't have guys like Elon Musk just deciding he's going to go to Mars. You can't have private companies putting satellites in orbit. It's getting out of control. It's getting to the point where you're not going to be able to cover it up. And so, they're advancing disclosure, but it's not the disclosure of the entire truth, as we've previously discussed. They're going to tell us what we need to know, bare minimum, to accommodate things that we're going to be seeing that are going to be undeniable, but they're never going to come out and tell us the whole truth about everything. And
Well, but don't you think that
they
undermines
probably don't.
religions too? It's too, not that religions aren't true, but it starts to get people questioning religion and how they're interpreting it. And that's a big deal.
Yes. There are fundamental groups that say that this entire phenomenon, they're even inside the government. I mean, Lou Elizondo told me about this and he spoke about it in one of the first TV shows that they put out on history back in 2018, about how inside the Pentagon there were some very fundamental religious factions that say that this is all angels and demons and that we shouldn't be messing with it. And
That's what they
they're
say, yes.
absolutely rabid about this. I've been on several podcasts where I talk to these guys and I'm like, look, I would not deny you that there's possibly a traditional angelic demonic relationship happening here that fits the cultural religious narratives. I will not sit here and say that is absolutely not the case. It could be. But what I need from you is to acknowledge that we could also be, in addition to that, we could also be dealing with some serious nuts and bolts physical beings that are from other planets that are not in the traditional roles of angelic or demonic entities. And almost every time they're not willing to make that compromise. And so
Why? Why do you think? It's just once you get into a camp,
I don't want to blast people's belief systems, but they just firmly believe that there's only one answer and that answer is theirs. And so there's a big groundswell of that kind of thinking. And so if we were able to find a compromise and a common ground where we could both acknowledge the different viewpoints and acknowledge that there's possibly more to it than this narrow focus thing, then we'd be in a lot better shape as a field. But, when it comes to some of the fundamentalist beliefs about angelic, demonic elements of this, and that's exactly what it is, and that's all it is, those people are hard to get through to.
well, I know that when I have remote viewers on or something like that, and I trained in remote viewing, it's almost like the demons come out and fight you. They act very I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost like they're possessed by a demon yelling at you for even doing it. It's incredible, the emails and the comments I get.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Sarah. It's we're dealing with a reality that we don't understand. We're dealing with limited perceptions of what's around us. We're dealing with a spiritual origin that we don't really understand. And we don't know anything about any of this. Our perception of space and time, what we are, who we are, why we are, is it's still in its infancy.
Yes, yep.
And so when we have all of these different elements at play and we have people just clinging to this and getting to the point where they're unleashing anger and torment against other people for having different beliefs, everybody's completely off. It's like, come on, people, deep breath. There's a lot of things going on here. The core thing is how we're evolving as humans, and are we working our way towards a more loving beingness? Because at the end of the day, I think that's the whole reason that we come here and we do this and we play this game.
Well,
And so,
and
yeah,
that's what I
it's
think the message of Jesus was too, is how do we maximize? I always say that the whole message is how do you maximize people flourishing, right? It's really simple. I really think that's all it is. But go ahead.
well, you hit on another bullet point of my new film is that what these aliens or angelic beings or whoever they are, and again, I think there's a lot of different things. What they're telling us is nothing new. They might be appearing to us through new filters, but they're telling us the same thing. It's like, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. You're here to evolve, and what you will evolve to is finding your way back to a unity, loving consciousness being that can coexist with itself. And rather we're hearing that from aliens, rather we're hearing it from experiencers that say they were taken aboard a ship and they were shown this and this and this, or we're hearing it from, the most ancient of spiritual teachings. It's the same message. And what's really interesting is that people aren't acknowledging that. And we're certainly I don't think we're evolving toward it right now. I think that, we're looking at evolving away from it. So we're missing out on the most important teachings, and we're putting so much focus on where it's coming from that we're missing what it is.
Yeah, yeah. So you really have a passion for this. You've done a lot of different movies. You're involved in the Ancient Alien series on HBO, right? What are you all
It's on.
involved in? Because you're involved in a lot of things.
Well, I work behind the scenes representing MUFON on shows like The Proof is Out There, The Unexplained with Shatner, Ancient Aliens. I've been on the show a few times, but I've helped out on a lot of episodes. So yeah, I know all those people. We're developing a new project right now that I can't talk about, but it's for another major outlet. To me, I've had a lot of choices what I could do with my media career, and doing things that help people to open their eyes and look beyond, what's for dinner and what the latest soap opera said. That's always been a fun thing for me. And exploring life's mysteries on my own has been important. And so that's what I do.
So where can people find more of your work? Like you have another project coming up. You had one in 2023. What's the best place people can follow you?
I'm on MUFON's Facebook. I do. I have a website. It's accidentaltruths with an s.com, and that's where people would be able to keep up with the new film. So we've got the one that came out in 2023. It's now free to watch on YouTube Movies, which I would tell people just go to YouTube and search for Accidental Truth. It's narrated by Matthew Modine, and it won 28 film festivals, and it still holds up
Wow.
as one of the best documentaries of the time. But what's really exciting, Sarah, is my next film, which is called Accidental Truth Next. And it's beyond UFO disclosure. We start off with a lot of really interesting adventures through Washington, D.C. You get to be behind the scenes, find out the deeper story behind some of the stuff that was made public. Um, and then we go into, yeah, but once we understand we're being visited by non-human intelligence, what does it mean? What is next for humanity? It's beyond UFO disclosure. And I'm super excited about that film. It's going to be coming out probably toward the end of February.
Wow.
It's
Who's all in
narrated by
it?
Matthew Modine again. We've got actor Thomas Jane and Ross Coulthart's in it. Michio Kaku's in it. It's an all-star cast. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Tim Burchett, uh, Eric Burlison. Just there's 20 or 30 people in this film that are going to be delivering some mind-boggling information.
Wow.
Rizwan
And
Virk is in it. Whitley Strieber's in it.
is
It's
it going to
very
be on
exciting.
Netflix or where is it going to be released?
It'll come out first on Amazon and Apple and all those places.
Okay, so Amazon, Apple, uh, and then it'll move to
Eventually,
Netflix or
it'll end
what?
up on YouTube movies.
Okay.
I'm going to limit the release structure this time just to make it. There's just going to be a couple platforms where you can get it. We're thinking about putting out the director's cut early on Vimeo, just for the hardcore people that want to see the longer film. So, but we're still playing with the exact parameters.
So Amazon and Apple are going to be is it Apple TV and then Amazon Prime?
Yes, those will be the two main ones.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Okay, last thing. I had Paul Hellyer on before he died, right? He
Oh,
is the
Paul, yeah,
Yeah, he was a defense minister in Canada, the
sure, for
highest
Canada.
level person that was willing to come out and just talk about this stuff. And when he was on, he talked about a galactic coalition that was out there ready to talk to the to talk, not the United States, to Earth, right?
Mhm.
Did you agree with where he was at? And do you think that pretty much is the evidence that you've seen?
Well, we've talked earlier in this interview about the just if you follow the thought process of reason, there's life out there. If you're interplanetary, you have destructive technology. In order to coexist in the universe, you must have some kind of alliance and agreements to keep yourself from blowing up entire planets. So, yes, I do think that there is some sort of loose galactic federation, so to speak.
That makes
I
sense.
produced an event back in, I think it was 2000. Was it that long ago? Um, it was the citizen hearing on disclosure. And that was where we brought, Steve Bassett and I brought ex-Congress people to the National Press Club to hear the testimony of
In
a whole lot of
2000?
people. Pardon me?
In 2000?
It was either 2000 or
Was that
2012.
also associated with Stephen Greer? Was that his or a separate one?
Stephen Greer did a different one, but Stephen Greer
Okay.
was also at this one. It was called the
Okay.
Citizen Hearing on Disclosure, and Paul Hellyer testified about a lot of that stuff. And so I got to know Paul, and I think that what he's saying, and there's another scientist that ran the Israeli um, space program. I can't remember his name right now, but he said the same thing that there's a galactic federation and that they're calling the shots, and I certainly believe that's possible.
In your new film, do you talk about that?
Not so much the Galactic Federation itself, but we definitely talk about all of the different entities, how they play into reality,
Wow.
and what we have to do in how we perceive ourselves and our place in the universe to start to digest all this.
And you
Because
have
it's a
senators coming out willing to go on record with some of that as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's true because I spent a lot of time in Washington D.C. and in the film we show some of the stuff that we did behind the scenes. One thing that the audience is going to see is that during the last hearing where Lou Elizondo was testifying, we were actually texting questions to the congressman to ask him. And one of the questions that we texted was about the Lockheed Martin materials story, which is something I've been following for a long time. And when Eric Burlison asked Lou Elizondo about Lockheed, Lou kind of accidentally spilled the beans because we hadn't been able to confirm yet that it was indeed Lockheed Martin. But right there, because of us texting this question in front of everybody, we were sitting in the back of the room. Lou made one of the biggest revelations in the field about Lockheed Martin being in possession of these materials. And then I went and talked to Dr. Gary Nolan, and it's all in the film. And I told Gary what happened in Washington. And Gary Nolan says, "Yeah, I was part of the team that was supposed to get that stuff. And you wouldn't believe where they were keeping it." So there's a lot of really interesting revelations that are going to come out in this film of the behind the scenes workings in DC. Um, then we take off and we go and we pull some materials that have been studied by a lot of different groups from this man in Ohio. We come back, we turn them into Kirsten Gillibrand to give to Arrow, and Arrow sends us a letter about it, but then publicly denies that they have the stuff. So people are going to find a lot to feast on in this movie.
Wow, that's exciting. I'm gonna have to watch it. Everybody's gonna want to watch that because that's a pretty incredible. I mean, it's one of the most incredible things for human of all time, right? It's human history. It's a big deal.
So, Sarah, I've got a rough cut that's on Vimeo that I'm letting just a few people see. Would you like, it's still not
Yeah.
quite
Oh
the finished
yeah.
film, but would you like me
Oh
to send
yeah.
it to you?
Yeah.
Would you give me some feedback? Because
I sure
I'm
will.
putting it to bed in the next, 2, 3 weeks.
Oh, for sure.
I'm letting some people see what we have so far and getting their opinion. So I would give you that link. You can check it out.
Perfect. I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to. And it's been such a pleasure having you on the show and talking to you about this. Really enjoyed it.
I'm available anytime. If you have, certain things that pop up that you want to discuss, I'll definitely let you know when the film comes out and give you some exclusive clips if you're interested.
Oh, perfect. And we can have you back.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. This was great.